Good evening, everyone. You're in the spotlight with Brian Garner for this Thursday, January the 4th, 2018. Good to have you out here for our second of two shows this week. Hope you're staying warm. Hope you're staying safe here on this wintry night. I mean, it's crazy what's been going on. It's funny. Every winter, we talk about, I mean, we live in the Northeast. So, if you're in the Northeast, you know what winters are. But it's funny if you've been following the weather coverage over the last week, in almost I think most majority of the country, it's pretty much winter weather in some way, shape, or form, whether it's cold or snow or ice or wind. So I don't feel I don't feel. At times when we do these shows during the winter, and I say, "Oh, stay warm or stay safe or whatever," I feel kind of weird because I think there's a whole segment of our audience that's like, hey, I mean, it's in the 50s here, it's nice, or it's in the 60s or something like that. Well, majority of this country is cold or in some way, shape, or form dealing with something wintry or at least colder weather. So hope you're staying warm and staying safe. It's not pretty out there, especially in the Northeast, but you got to power through it somehow. Not everybody can get shut down, and the things don't just shut down unless it's a severe big blizzard kind of storm. In some cases, New York City and some of the coastal cities, it does shut things down. But for like where we live, it takes a lot to shut things down. It's and sometimes that annoys you, but it is what it is. So here we are on our second of two shows this week, and we don't have a lot tonight. We have a couple special segments we're going to do. As I mentioned on Tuesday, we'll do those. And then we got some of the usual stuff to do. And tonight was a significant night in that the nomination ballots for the 8th annual In the Spotlight Film Awards were due at 9 o'clock. I'm obviously we're on the air late, which I'm going to be for the reason for that was an issue I was having. We're having some wins and I'm having some internet issues, to be fair. But I don't think that was the reason, because I was able to get the internet up after about 10, 15 minutes, as far as like getting a signal strong enough to be able to do this. I think I was having issues making this, making this being able to be seen is what I should say. It's not the more wordy way of saying. I was having issues getting on the air. The signal wasn't very, like I said, the internet was kind of off and on, and then I was having trouble getting this going, and then I didn't have audio, and then my picture was messed up. So if there are technical problems tonight, bear with us. Anytime there's any kind of like winds, high winds and stuff, there's always something. So I always worry about those kind of nights, and I was kind of worried about this today during the day. I was like, hey, tonight's probably not going to be the best, but so that's why we're on late, and I apologize for that. And again, if we have any technical problems, you can let me know. But if we do, just be aware that's probably the reason if we don't have the best weather around here right now, as I indicated at the beginning of the show. So tonight, entertainment. We got box office beat. We got TV highlights. Our film segment, which I mean, for years we've called film picks of the week. We've kind of gone back to the original premise. We did that about a month ago. Now it's called, I had to come up with a different name for it, because we're not doing we're just not picking our favorite movies or the movies that we thought were good. We're going to review any movie that we've seen. That's the whole point of it now. And so I had to change the name. I came up with Film Spotlight of the Week, and that's what we're going to call it. So we'll do that tonight as well. And then we got a couple special segments. We're going to talk about Jodie Foster's comments regarding blockbuster films, superhero movies, and James Gunn's reaction to it, which as I mentioned on Tuesday, I thought was really, really good. And then we'll talk about the Star Wars controversy that's been going on for a month. I've been putting it off, but I don't want to put it off so long that it's no longer relevant. We're going to talk about it. There will be spoilers, so please, if you don't know what happened or you haven't seen the movie by now, it's been out. Gosh, what are we now? About 3 weeks in. So I think by now most people probably would have seen it. But if you haven't seen it and you don't want to be spoiled and you don't know what's going on, then you might want to kind of back away from that particular segment until you've seen it. But and that's what we're going to do tonight. Next week, as I mentioned, 2 shows. Tuesday will be a sports entertainment combo. We'll talk about the football playoff games from the weekend. We'll talk about the national championship game, which is coming up on Monday. We'll talk any other big sports headlines that we have to cover. College basketball, baseball, anything else we have to cover. We'll do wrestling. We'll do entertainment stuff, box office, BTV highlights. You probably won't do film stuff next week because we won't have the time. And then next Thursday will be the night that we announce the the 8th annual In the Spotlight Film Award nominations. We'll announce those next Thursday, so that will be the whole show. And then, of course, we'll start the process of deciding the live voted award nominees. And I'll tell you all how to do that if you don't know next Thursday. So 2 shows next week. Just be aware of something, too. I'm just going to give you all a heads up because I wanted to start a new schedule this month. Where I had mentioned this a couple of months ago, where we're going to start earlier, and then that way we can get more things in and not be compressed for time and all that stuff. I was going to start that within the next couple of weeks, but I might have to wait on that for a little while because of the fact that, as I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, my wife is pregnant, and we have to do childbirth classes, and those childbirth classes happen to be on Tuesdays. So I don't, it won't make me later than usual because we always seem to be late for some reason or another, but it won't make me later than I usually am. But if I wanted to just start the show at 8, which is my plan on Tuesdays and that, I mean, I could do it on Thursday if I wanted to, but I don't want to do that because it's too complicated. Oh, we're at 8 on Tuesday and at 9 on Thursday. That doesn't make much sense. So if I wanted to start it at 8 on Tuesday, well, I wouldn't be here because the class ends at 8:30. So I can't do that. So we're going to have to, I mean, it's a 3-week class. So after that is probably when I'm going to have to start it. So just be aware, we're going to do a schedule change, but I decided not to do that yet because of that. So we'll keep the same schedule for at least the next few weeks until that's ended. And then we'll see where we're at there because it depends on when she goes in labor because she's due in February. So we'll see how that goes. But how the schedule goes and whatnot. So I just want to let you all know of that because I know people have been asking, when's the new schedule start? Well, it was going to start this month, but, things happen. So, all right. So next week, again, nominations announced next Thursday. I'll let you know beyond next week. I want to go a week at a time because, again, things, with me are kind of like, wait and see. So we'll go a week at a time here as we go. And then later in the month, I'll get into maybe what we're going to be doing in February with schedule because there might be a period where, we might have to take like a week off or something abruptly. But I'll explain more about that when we get closer to it. All right. So with that being said, I noticed Mike did pop on. We got to see him briefly for a minute, and then he silenced his mic and, had his little graphic pop up. So, Mike, you're in the spotlight. How you doing?
Eat a dick.
Nice. Welcome on. Welcome to you too. Hope you had a good day. Yeah. Probably didn't, huh? Like most people.
Eat a dick.
Very pleasant as usual.
Nothing if not consistent.
No, yeah, you're very consistent. You're right. All right, so we got some things to do, so let's do them because that's what we do. We do things on the show. I'm not. I'm very Somebody earlier. I was talking to because I do that before we get on the show, before we get on the air. Sometimes I talk to some of our fans. Sometimes I talk to other people that I associate with online, on message boards and stuff. And I was talking to somebody, they're like, "Boy, you seem very eccentric today." Like, 1 minute I'm having a conversation, I bring up something completely random. I'm in one of those moods today. Like 1 minute I'm in a conversation, and next minute I'm like, "Hey, what about this?" And then they're like, "Wait, where'd that come from?" I'm just very eccentric today, random, eccentric, more than usual, I guess, because I can be like that sometimes. But I don't know if it's just being overtired or just like a nervous mechanism because I was pretty nervous today about the weather and everything. I don't know what it was, but regardless, I've been like that all day. So you know what? If it happens during the show, bear with me. But people noticed it before the show too. So, all right, I'm being, like I said, being random tonight. All right, so we got a lot to do. And let's do them. Let's do what we have to do here. Let's start with the box office, which I don't think really we have a lot to say about. Why? Because, when that last week was obviously the week between Christmas and New Year's, which we all know is a week that usually is, all the movies that are released before Christmas, they're the ones that are at the top. They're the ones that, drive most of the business. And then, of course, you have a couple of movies that are on, are very, very big on the awards circuit. Movies that are getting a lot of awards buzz. And sorry about that. I got a little echo there. You got those movies that are like buzzworthy awards type movies, and they are there, but they don't really expand much until like after the Golden Globes, which will be on this Sunday, by the way. And that's usually when they start to expand and get bigger theater counts and that kind of thing. So you have those movies, but most of the business is driven by the big blockbusters that came out right before Christmas, and that was what happened last week. You had you had Star Wars continuing to make big business. Sorry. We had Jumanji. You had The Greatest Showman, Pitch Perfect. All those movies back in play again, with Star Wars dominating once again. And we'll talk more about Star Wars later because is the pace of it behind Force Awakens? Yes, but who didn't think that was going to happen? You can't use that to determine whether it's already over $1 billion. It's already well on its way to doing exactly what Disney probably thought it would do. It was never going to make what Force Awakens made in total. Now, I mean, the funny part about that is, let me just bring this up real quick. It shouldn't make that, and I don't think it will. Okay, but here's the thing: there is a possibility that it could. The way it's the way it's doing, the way it's kind of progressing, it might just take it longer to get to that point. But in all honesty, it could still hit that mark. I don't think anybody anticipates it. I don't think anybody thinks it will, and I don't think anybody should think it will. But the possibility is still there. And if you went into this thinking that it was a foregone conclusion that it would, then you were wrong. That was unfair. Because there's no way that one, Force Awakens had a lot more going for it. 30 years since the originals were in the movie. Trying to overcome what the prequels did. I mean, there was a lot there. There was a lot more there to, going for it. Now, I know with Carrie Fisher passing away and everything, people thought that might give this some extra push. But again, I still didn't think even with that it could hit what Force Awakens did. So to me, it's doing just fine. I think the bigger shock is how well Jumanji has done. Now, look, people were out of school. Kids were out of school last week. Families were home. A lot of people were off. All these movies were going to do well. Some better than others. Maybe some should have done better than they did. So it's not surprising to me to see Jumanji doing. I think there were people that thought, well, you know what? People might see it as just another reboot. They're not going to like this. But once you put The Rock and Kevin Hart, two of the most bankable box office names in Hollywood right now, in the same movie, and stick them, and it's a family movie, mind you. To me, it indicates that this could always do better than even people expect. Okay, so is it surprising? Maybe a little bit, but I don't think you can be bowled over by it. I really don't. I mean, I don't think you'd be so shocked that your jaw dropped that it's doing just well. You could be a little surprised, maybe because of all the competition and whatnot, that it couldn't pull this off. Certainly, you could do that, but I don't think it shouldn't be a jaw-dropping surprise. More like a, hey, I thought I didn't think it'd do that good, but hey, yeah, okay. But nonetheless, it's doing great, and people seem to be responding to it, and it was the right time to release the movie. Timing is everything, and family movies. There was a lot of family movies, marketed movies towards families this holiday season, but this is kind of a what's the word I'm looking for? Mainstream vehicle. It's a high concept type deal, and with two bankable actors, it always stood a chance of doing well. And I think even Greatest Showman, which didn't do great last week, got off to an okay start. I mean, playing more to audiences, picked up some steam this week because it got some good word of mouth, and people were off, and maybe last weekend with Christmas and such, it didn't have, people were still out watching Star Wars, and there were maybe more people going out to see Jumanji, while Greatest Showman was kind of there like, hey, you know what? It's there. We can go see it some other time. Greatest Showman was kind of that movie you get to when you got into the movies you really want to rush out and see. And it reminds me a lot of a few years back, more than a few years back, maybe like 6, 7 years back. Sherlock Holmes, Alvin and the Chipmunks, and Avatar all came out around the same time. Obviously, Avatar dominated the headlines, much like Star Wars: The Last Jedi is. And you saw Sherlock Holmes and Alvin and the Chipmunks get off to okay to modest kind of starts. And then over the next couple of weeks, as the holidays progressed and everything, you saw them pick up steam. Well, that's what, Jumanji picked up a little bit, but then you also saw The Greatest Showman pick up a little bit. And I think that's kind of compares to that if you really think about it. So the only negative, I think, and it's not even really a negative. It's just, maybe a little bit of a disappointment. It's Pitch Perfect has not done great. But it is the last in the franchise. It is going to be over budget. It made $16.8 million last week for the 3-day. Again, there was some 4-day counts because New Year's Day was on Monday. It made $21.6 for the 4-day, if you want to count New Year's Day. It's not bad, but you compare it to what the second one did. Now, again, the second one came out in the summer. It's a $45 million movie that's already at $104 million worldwide. So it's not like it's a flop. It's just, I think they consider it disappointing. But it's only disappointing by a wide margin if you consider what the second one did. And the second one didn't have the competition, and it was in the summer. The first one didn't do anywhere close to this business. So, I don't see it as a bad thing. It just shows you that it was the right time for it to end. And it also shows you that putting it in during Christmas was probably probably a bad move. It probably should have been a summer type movie, but it is what it is. So when we look at the numbers, as I said, Star Wars dominated over the 4 days, 66.8, over the 3 days, 52.5. So we had a big New Year's Day to get to that point. So that's huge for that movie. Jumanji, 66.2 for the 4-day, 50 for the 3. So New Year's Day was apparently a big movie day. If you look at these jumps that you're seeing here, Pitch Perfect, I already mentioned. That was in 3rd, by the way. Greatest Showman was in 420.9 for the 3-day, 15.5 for the 3. Not too bad there. A couple holdovers from the last couple weeks. Ferdinand stayed put in 5th, 11.3 million for the 3-day, 14.8 for the 4. Coco still hanging around despite Ferdinand, despite all the other competition, in 6th, 10 million for the 4-day, 7.4 million for the 3. That's terrific considering it's been out for 6 weeks. We had a new release in All the Money in the World, which has been getting a lot of awards traction. It made 5.5 million out of 2,074 theaters for the 3-day, and 7.2 million for the 4. You also had Darkest Hour, which is the Gary Oldman film with him as Winston Churchill, open in 943 theaters, or expanded to 943 theaters, made 7 million for the 4-day, 5.4 million for the 3. Downsizing for the 3 came in under 5 million, but for the 4-day came in with 6.2 million. And then everything else finished under 5 million, including Maui's Game, which was the other kind of awards type movie on All the Money in the World that opened last weekend. It came in with 3.1 million for the 4-day and 2.3 million for the 3. So all in all, it ends up being a very good week at the box office. New Year's Day ended up being a huge day, as you can see from jumps from the 3-day to the 4-day. That's very good. And as you look at, and a lot of times, if you're Hollywood and you look at these blockbusters, you're like, okay, holiday movies. Oh yeah, we get, it's always big, whatever. But you want to see how these movies do beyond that. And if you look at the box office, okay, and you look at the numbers so far, I mean, obviously New Year's Day was big. But you look at the drops from New Year's Day to, Tuesday and then Wednesday. You look at Jumanji, it's, went from 16.2 to 10.2, then to 6.9. Star Wars, 14.2, 7.8, 5.2. Now, Star Wars is dropping more sharply, but it should. It's been out for 3 weeks. Jumanji's not dropping quite as sharply. It's doing okay. So, and then you got Greatest Showman, which isn't dropping as much. And again, it plays more to older audiences, so that's not surprising. And then Pitch Perfect, which isn't dropping as much either, and that might play more to older audiences as well. In addition to some of the younger fans of like Anna Kendrick and Rebel Wilson, etc. So all in all, it's a good thing. The box office ended 2017 strong, starts the new year in very good shape. Now the question is going to be, as we start this new year, how far does Star Wars go? It's already at 1.1 billion. So how far does it go? And what's good about this movie too is it's an even split, almost an even split, 544 domestic, 563 overseas. So it's almost an even split. So you can't say it's done better overseas. It's one of those movies that did better overseas, and that's what saved it. But how far will that go? You know, where will we see Jumanji on the bad? It's already closing in on 400 million worldwide. You know, Greatest Showman. If Greatest Showman continues to do okay at the box office, how does that do for its awards run here? All big questions. And, you know, can these movies sustain the box office? Now, this weekend, we do have one new release, and that new release is in the form of Insidious, The Last Key, a horror film from Universal, opening in 3,116 theaters. PG-13, only budgeted at $10 million, which is smart for a movie coming out the week after New Year's. Jason Blum, Owen Pelly, and James Wan are producers on this. Largely an unknown cast. You know, the question now. Here's the thing. Okay, there's storms. There's a big coastal storm in several big markets. That's probably going to hold the box office down. So you know, unless they have a really good Saturday night and Sunday when everything's over. So that's going to hold numbers down. When you get in the wintertime, when you have storms like what's going on the East Coast, it could really hold things down. So now that more so affects new releases, in my opinion, more than holdovers, because holdovers are already going to be dropping. So you never know how much a storm would impact a holdover, because you don't know how much a drop-off is going to be. You just try to guess it. A new release, you're kind of going, all right, it's opening in this many theaters, you know, you expect, there's an expectation in its first weeks, and you know that the weather is going to affect that more so because it's its first week. So I don't expect much from this. It's PG-13, which makes it more accessible. I would be shocked if it makes more than 20, 25 million. I really would. I don't think it'll be in first. I don't think it'll do enough to be in first. I suspect that first place will go to Jumanji this weekend, the way it's holding up. So I'm going to say right now, as it stands, I think Jumanji will be first, maybe around, I'm going to go lower than 20 million if it's 6. I really think that the storm and everything's going to hold that back. So I'll say Jumanji around 20, 21 million. I think the top 3 is going to be very close. Insidious, I'll go in second, barely. I could see Star Wars beating it. I really could. I could see Star Wars beating it. I'm going to go with... see, you know what? I'm backtracking already. Yeah, I'll go with Jumanji, because Jumanji's already passed Star Wars. Jumanji in first with around 25 to 30 million. 25 million for Jumanji. I'll go Star Wars in second with around 20. I'll go about 17, 18 million for Insidious. I'll go Pitch Perfect. I think it's going to drop off. I think kids being out of school and college, and that was helping that one stay afloat, because it was barely ahead of Greatest Showman. I'm going to go with Greatest Showman next, with around maybe 10 million. Pitch Perfect around 9. I think Fernand crashed around 7. Coco to around 5. And I think everything else will finish under 5 million this week. That's the way I see it going. So it wouldn't be a bad weekend if it falls that way at the box office, but compared to the last couple of weeks, and again, it's after the holidays now, so it's going to be like, back to square one for a lot of movies, or back to square one for the box office in a lot of ways. So, these awards movies will expand over the next few weeks, and they'll hope that they can bank on those, getting all the attention from the Golden Globes and such, maybe bank on those doing a little bit at the box office and helping keeping it afloat. Because next week you got 4 releases, all of which are expanding, and will end up 3 of which will end up being considered major releases. The Commuter, the Liam Neeson action film, Paddington 2, a family film from Warner Brothers, that'll be the biggest release. Proud Mary, a drama from Sony, and then you got an expanded release of an animated film called Condorito La Película from Lionsgate. That'll only be in 150 theaters, so that one probably won't factor into much of anything, but it will be on the board. And then after that, things will slowly start to pick up as we get closer to the end of January, and then February, of course, when you usually see some big blockbusters turn up again as we approach winter break and Valentine's Day and that kind of thing. So this week should be an okay week. It probably would be a little better if there wasn't winter storms. But again, it's the week after New Year's. What do you expect? So that's the way I see this week's box office going, and that's really all that can be said about last week. Mike, do you have any box office thoughts to add?
Star Wars 1.
Again. That it?
Yeah. What else
Okay.
was I supposed to say? I don't
know. I don't know.
I don't care.
Hey. I threw to you early in the show. I mean, it's not like Tuesday, so give me a break. I didn't know if there was anything else. Yeah.
Hey, Wayne. Hey,
Mhm.
Wayne.
Mhm.
No.
Sure. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Cool. Wow. Okay. Now that that's done, as we usually do after the box office, we'll jump into we'll jump around. We go from film to TV, back to film. Mike, I'm sure you have some TV highlights. That's what we're going to do. So, what do you got?
Why are you judging me, thinking I have TV highlights this week?
Because you watch a lot more
How dare you, good sir? Assuming things.
Yes.
Maybe I haven't had time to watch some TV this week, huh?
Maybe you haven't.
And to be fair, I really haven't had a ton of time to watch some TV this week. It's been a little busy the week. I can say I did actually catch on Netflix. Dave Chappelle released 2 specials same day, and I was able to catch the first one. And the first one was really, really funny. He talks about the 4 times he met O.J. Simpson in his lifetime. It was a very, very clever. It was a very clever special, really funny. I really recommend it. Dave Chappelle is always one of the funniest comics in the world, so can't blame him. Can't blame him for getting that money. I didn't get to see the second special yet. I would like to see it sometime soon. Let's see. Lethal Weapon. Wow. Okay. Lethal Weapon was good. Murtaugh's dealing with stuff with his kid, and then Riggs's overarching plot this year seems to be dealing with his dad, and we finally get some. We finally see Riggs and his dad. Spoiler alert: meet face to face, and see how that's gonna go. Because we have been led to believe that his dad was dead. Spoilers: he isn't. But there was a nice mystery this week. They did some good stuff. It was look, Lethal Weapon is always entertaining, and you kind of knew who was going to be the bad guy the moment he walked on the screen. It was almost like you were going to call this guy. He might have been a former Ghostbuster. You never know. But it was a good episode of Lethal Weapon. So the show always delivers, and that's all you can ask for is a show that always delivers. Other than that, it's been a light week. I've got Bull on the DVR. I've got Kevin Probably Saves the World on DVR. I will say that there was a Twilight Zone marathon on Sci-Fi around New Year's, and I've been watching a lot of Twilight Zone.
Huh.
Twilight Zone, not for the people who want a happy ending, obviously. Um, they rarely, rarely end happy. Uh,
Yeah,
there's always a twist. Local guy Rod Sterling, may he rest in peace. He produced a hell of a show. So yeah, that's all I really seen this week is some Twilight Zone and some. I watched some Lethal Weapon and I watched some Dave Chappelle. Also, I watched some wrestling here and there, but that's not surprising. So Brian, I gave you a couple of decent picks.
you did.
So why don't you actually talk for it about, let's say, 45 and a half minutes,
I
because we all know you'd love to do that,
I
and,
would
and, and
usually.
talk about shows that you've watched, or let's be honest here, the one or two shows you might have seen that aren't Walking Dead. Well, Walking Dead's over. That are Agents of Shield.
That wasn't out last week either.
I don't care.
Oh, wow. Okay. I do watch more than that. I just choose to highlight the ones I think were good or that I thought
Oh, I'm
were
sorry.
worthy as
Did I
well.
did I did I neglect to mention Gotham again?
That wasn't on the. Oh, you know what? Shut up. All right. You know I watch more than that, so shut up. Give me a break. Give me a
Brian,
break. No,
let's
no, no,
just
no.
call this spade a spade. At least we're not going
Yeah,
to be watching Arrow right now.
yeah, that don't come back for a couple more weeks, thank God. I
Yep.
don't even miss it.
Nope.
Nope. But anyway, I did watch. I didn't watch a lot this week because there wasn't a lot on. All right, there just isn't a lot on right now. Last year during the holidays, I think I took the chance to kind of get catch up on a lot of things that were sitting on the DVR. Well, I haven't had the time to do that because between the weather and having to shovel and do everything around here and not feeling well and everything, I just haven't had the time. So the only thing that wow, I'm trying to think about what I watched. I watched The Blacklist last night. That was about the only thing I watched. I only watched that because my wife was home. We decided to watch it. Usually we don't watch it live. But yeah, we watched that. I thought that was good. Probably the best episode I've seen in about a year and a half from that show. It was, you know, one of the things I like is when a show kind of flounders for long enough, like when they kind of get off track, and even if they didn't realize that they did, maybe they still thought they were doing okay. But then they do like what I consider like a soft reboot where they just take something like, you know what, we need to make a significant change, which they did. They killed off a main character, whether that was their plan or not, whatever. And then they kind of do something to shake things up, and what they did last night did that because you essentially made Liz into Red, which I guess is kind of the way that they've always been leaning since the beginning of the show. It's, the way that they built it up. So it didn't feel narratively out of place. Um, Whether they plan to do that so quickly and instead of doing it at the end of the season. I always suspected that's where the end game was at the end of this season. But I didn't know if they were going to do it halfway through the season itself. So it ultimately ended up being a really good episode and a good character development episode that I thought really worked well. So I'll give them credit for that. What else did I see? I feel like there was something. There's other things I watched. I'm just trying to think of what they were. Let's see. What else did I watch? Other than sports, because I watched a lot. I watched a lot of bowl games. I watched a lot of See, that's the thing. I watch a lot of sports. That's why I don't get the chance to watch a lot of stuff on DVR. I didn't watch Lethal Weapon this week. I didn't watch that. Oh, you know what I watched this week? You know what I finally got the chance to watch? It's unfortunate because it got canceled today. The Mayor. And it's a shame it got canceled because it's not bad. And again, though, that's kind of that's kind of why I stay away from some of these new shows because I feel like they're going to cancel right on the spot. I feel like networks just don't give people a chance anymore. They really don't. But yeah, I mean, I watched that. And I watched 2 episodes of it. I thought it wasn't bad. It wasn't the best thing ever, but it wasn't bad. So I mean, I think they're gonna end it at 13 episodes. So if you haven't seen that, you can check that out while it's still around. But yeah, I can't think. I know there was something else that I kind of got to randomly. I decided to watch, and it wasn't one of my usual shows. It's something that was sitting on the DVR. I think there was one other thing I did, and I'm trying to think of what it is. I don't mean to stall. What else was it? Hmm. It wasn't anything CBS related because I don't watch really anything on that network anymore. At least regularly. Oh, you know what I watched? I can't believe I can't believe it completely switched my mind. The X Files last night. That's what it was. Actually, no, that wasn't what it was, but I did watch that. Yeah, you know, I really don't have much. I know that this is probably going to be the ending of it. Gillian Anderson's quitting. It was all right. I mean, I'm being vague on purpose because I know a lot of people probably haven't seen it yet. If you look at the ratings, probably a lot of people haven't seen it yet. But yeah, I mean, it's. I would have been better off just leaving it alone years ago, to be honest. I mean, I really think that. I mean, was there always more stories they could have told? I guess so, but to me, the whole thing's been flat since they relaunched it. To be honest, I thought it was. I just don't see. I don't think they're taking advantage of the things that they could be doing with it. But it was all right. There's one more thing. I wish I could think of it. I know there's another show. I wasn't thinking of X Files. I know there was another show. That's gonna drive me crazy. I apologize. That's gonna drive me nuts. 'Cause I hate that when you think of something. I didn't catch up on The Gifted, so it wasn't that. I need to catch up on that show. I was all caught up on The Orville, so it wasn't that. Um, Dude, oh man, it's driving me bananas. Oh well, I guess I can't think of it. Um, so yeah, I guess that's all I have because I can't think of whatever it was. I know there was something else, but I can't think of it. So we'll leave it at that. So not a lot this week. I probably should put the segment on hiatus until mid-January, to be honest. But anyway, but yeah, I don't. That's all I got. Really quickly though, before we do the film stuff, film picks, film spotlight, I should say. For those wondering, because I know the Golden Globes are on Sunday, but they're early this year. Everything's early because of the Olympics in February, which we'll cover obviously. Um, People ask my thoughts. I don't have a lot of thoughts. I told you my thoughts on the nominations. Um, I really don't. I mean, I am pulling for certain people. Like, it is going to be interesting to see Stranger Things versus Game of Thrones. That's going to be interesting. It is going to be interesting to see what ends up because honestly, I think a lot of people are wondering about the drama category and what's going to pull out the win there in film. Because I don't see too many indicators as to what will win there. I haven't seen it yet. I plan to see it. I want to see if The Greatest Showman does well. There's a few things I'm pulling for, but honestly, I mean, I don't have. Normally, I could sit here and say like, "Oh, this person I think is going to win, but I really like this person to win," or "This movie's going to win, but I really like this movie to win." I honestly don't have much of an indicator as to what's going to win on Sunday, which is kind of cool, I guess. I mean, some of this there is more unpredictability this year because I don't feel like anything. I mean, that's not to say that that all this stuff was bad or whatever. I feel like this was a better year than last year as far as filmmaking and television goes. But I think because of that, it makes it a little more unpredictable as to what's going to win. Because I think things are going to be a little more competitive. So we'll see how it goes. We'll talk about it more after than we will. I'm not going to sit here and make predictions and prognostications and that. We'll talk more about after effects. I think I honestly I haven't seen enough indicators which way or another about most of these categories on Sunday. But the only thing I can probably tell you is Coco's going to win animated. Probably that's an easy one to pick. But other than that, I don't really have too many predictions one way or the other. So we'll see how it goes. I think it'll be a lot. I think it'll be one of the more interesting Golden Globes for a lot of reasons. The scandals in Hollywood is one of them on the negative side of things, but also on the positive side, I think it's gonna be a very competitive field in terms of some of these categories. So I think that makes it more interesting. So yeah, I just want to briefly comment on that. All right, so film spotlight. Now, again, we kind of, as I mentioned the first time we did this a couple weeks ago, or the first time we revisited this a couple weeks ago, we kind of went back to the old way of doing this segment, which was instead of just bringing up movies that we liked, or any movie that either one of us sees, we are bringing up and kind of giving a review of it. That way, we give you our thoughts even on movies that we don't like, because I think that's kind of the better way to do it. It leads to more discussion and that kind of thing. So when we last did this, we talked about Thor Ragnarok and Murder on the Orient Express. Today we're going to do a couple because I don't know when we're going to do this again, because I don't know when we're going to have time to do this again. So I like to clear things up a little bit and kind of leave it in a spot where I can remember where we left it off. Even though I put it in my notes, sometimes it gets kind of lost in the midst of everything else. So, let's see. As I look at things, I heard something from upstairs that kind of made me creeped out. But okay, that's real creepy. But anyway, it's one of those things where you thought you heard like creeping like from behind you, and then you realize there's nobody behind you. So that's kind of weird. Anyway, all right, so we have a couple we're gonna do. We're gonna do Justice League, and we're gonna do let's see, Justice League, and I think we'll do Coco. I think we'll leave Disaster Artist for right now. Just in case people haven't seen it, because again, it hasn't been out in enough theaters yet to the point where people might not, but some people might be out there haven't seen it yet. So I'll leave that one alone for now. So let's do Justice League and let's do Coco. Justice League was a movie that not only did I see, but Mike saw. So I'll give my thoughts and I'll let him have his thoughts. But first, I'll do Coco that way, because I know he hasn't seen Coco. And then that way, when I throw to him, he can, So I'm going to do Coco first. I'm going to be very brief about Coco because I imagine most people have seen it. And I imagine most people have had a positive reaction to it. I mean, for many, the only negative reaction was watching the Frozen short before. And look, the Frozen short wasn't bad. Okay, it wasn't bad, but it was too long to put in front of that movie. It was too long, and it didn't need to happen. If you're going to put it on TV anyway, what's the point? Coco didn't need that. It was going to do well enough on its own, but I digress. This movie, first of all, it's visually stunning. And, going into it, a lot of people had said, well, I don't want any part of it. That's too strong. A lot of people had said, well, it's going to be like the Book of Life. Oh, no, it's nothing like the Book of Life. Okay. It's obviously we got similar themes and Day of the Dead and everything, but it's so different. So different. And it's going to surprise you. Within 15 minutes, you're going to be surprised by how simplistic the story is. Because I think when the movie starts, you're thinking, all right, music is very important to the main character, and he's inspired by his role model, and this seems and then they start swerving you, and you're thinking one way, and there are some twists, but the story in and of itself is very simplistic. And yeah, that's something that Pixar likes. So they take a simple story and they make it more complex, but they don't make it too complex here. They add some twists, but it's pretty straightforward. And it doesn't need to be more complex because it's so effective in and of itself that it doesn't need too many layers. It doesn't need, and the twists that are there work within the story that they're telling. It's a very engrossing film, and it's an experience film, and this is a movie. I didn't see it in 3D, but if I can see people saying I need to see this in 3D. I really can. I think it would lend itself very well to that, and not take away anything from it. But it's beautifully done, obviously, and it really was one of the best movies of the year. And the last 15 minutes are so emotional and so beautiful, and it's probably the first time in a long time I've teared up at the end of a movie. It is very, very well done, and elicits it touches you on so many levels. So I would say I would very much recommend, if you haven't seen it yet, you'll come out learning a lot about a lot of the traditions of Mexico, and um, I think that it's something, it's one of those true Pixar classics that kids can go see, and along with adults, and it's not dumbed down at all, but it also suits what kids would like to watch too. Just beautifully done, should win animated, no doubt about it, and one by far one of the best movies I saw this year. If not, it's got to be top three. It's just a beautiful movie. So if you haven't seen Coco yet, go see Coco, because it's really brilliant. All right, so I did Coco. I'll do a couple comments on Justice League, and then let Mike do the rest. If you go into Justice League with the idea that you're not expecting Wonder Woman, and that you're open to anything that's better than Batman versus Superman, and your expectations are that low, like if you go into it just going, you know what, I just hope that it's somewhat entertaining, then I think you will come out of it saying that was okay. Because that's really what I came out of it with, is that was okay. My expectations could not have gotten any lower, and really with all the reshoots and all the stuff that went on with this movie and everything that's happened before outside of Wonder Woman, you need to go in with those kind of expectations. If you're going to see it, you need to do that, because otherwise, it's no way you're gonna come out entertained at all by it. I came out mildly entertained. There were parts of it I liked a lot. I liked the Flash. I thought he was fine. I thought Aquaman worked okay. I thought other parts of it weren't as good. I thought they did pretty bad. They used Wonder Woman pretty ineffectively. I didn't like some of the writing for her. I thought what they did with Bruce Wayne Batman was terrible compared to how he was in. And I can see why Ben performed the way he did in this movie, because it was nothing. That's the one true thing about Batman vs Superman that I thought worked, was Batman, and I thought his characterization wasn't bad, other than the fact that he was wildly killing people. But they even tried to explain that a little bit. In this movie, I thought his characterization was terrible, and kind of hokey to me. But and the Superman stuff, once Superman got there, it was brought back. I liked him. I thought it was the best we've seen Henry Cavill. He got to play a hopeful, more inspired Superman. I finally liked him and Lois. Lois wasn't, this annoying presence that has to be so active in the plot that you feel like it's forced. I felt like everything related to Superman worked so much better in this movie. I didn't like the way they brought him back, but other than that, I thought everything else worked. So, see, the villain is probably the weakest part. Steppenwolf is terrible. The CGI battles at the end are terrible. But if you can get around that and just, some of the interactions between the main heroes are for the most part okay. And you will, it was more fun to watch, which is a nice step in the right direction. But yeah, the most you're going to come out of this movie with, some people really did generally like it. For me, I came out with, okay, that was okay. And I think that's what the majority of people that would see this movie would come out with, that was okay. So, would it be considered a step in the right direction? I guess so, yeah. After Wonder Woman, look, if you watch this after Wonder Woman, you're going to think it's awful. I'm just going to tell you that right now. So don't watch Wonder Woman before it. But on its own, and if you go in with the right expectations, I think you'll find some enjoyment in it. So that's about all I can say about it. Mike, do you have any thoughts on Justice League?
Okay. Picture this.
Sure.
We have fierce warriors guarding something. We have fierce warriors kind of there, just they sense something's not right. And in the distance, an oncoming dread. This oncoming dread is marching on a warpath, a sadistic monster. He is coming. And then Minoru Suzuki shows up, and suddenly Justice League gets so much better. To be fair, I don't know if I'd be the only one who's thinking that Japanese professional wrestling legend Minoru Suzuki, who wrestled today at Wrestle Kingdom 12, I think it was, and
Mhm.
he marched down to the ring like he was a man on a mission, and it might have been the scariest thing in professional wrestling. And to Suzuki's credit, he did lose. I'm pretty sure he let the guy win because Minoru Suzuki doesn't lose. He just kind of lets the other guy win and moves
Hmm.
on to doing something more important, like watching One Piece. And apparently taking a picture with Chris Jericho.
Hmm.
And but that oncoming dread, and then the crowd, and that whole Tokyo Dome crowd chanting his theme. It was way more interesting than Steppenwolf could ever hope to be. Oh my god. If the Justice League faced Minoru Suzuki, I'm pretty sure Minoru Suzuki would finally be like, okay, I can actually try now. Now, here's the thing: Justice League finally did something right with Superman. Superman and this whole Man of Steel trilogy finally felt like Superman. Um, and he had some really, really funny lines, especially when he came back to life. Spoiler alert: Superman came back to life. What are the odds?
Yeah, right.
Batman being utterly desperate to revive Superman was a cool character arc for him. Wonder Woman, I agree with you, was utterly wasted in this movie. Aquaman was again pretty wasted in this movie, but a lot of his stuff ended up on the cutting room floor. What are the odds? The Flash, it was an interesting take on Barry Allen. It was, but the problem is they shouldn't have used Barry Allen because we have 4 seasons of an actor already playing Barry Allen. And I'm like, well, I've already seen this before. I've seen it
Mhm.
recently. And honestly, I'm more invested in that than Barry, well, I don't really have any friends, Allen. I don't know. It was a dumb choice on their part. They should have just used a different Flash. Like, I don't know, let's say Wally West. Might have been a better idea. Cyborg was there.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Cyborg was there. I mean, the actor played it as best he could. Um, but the material for Cyborg wasn't 100%. At that point, maybe you're like, maybe we should use a different superhero. Or maybe instead of Cyborg, we should use someone not connected to the Teen Titans, like Static. Static Shock. That might have been interesting and fulfilled the cool youth thing, the cool hip youth. So you maybe could have used a Barry Allen, or maybe even gone back and used another Flash. So, maybe. So the writing for the Justice League was there. The movie itself was fine. Again, I agree with you. Don't watch Wonder Woman before this. Wonder Woman is clearly a superior movie. It's not even close. Excuse me. It's not even close. And they could have used Wonder Woman worse. So let me say that they could have used Wonder Woman worse. So I'm just pointing that out.
Hmm.
But as a whole, the movie was all right. You could tell that they did a ton of reshoots, and you could tell that the lighter tone was due to Joss Whedon. After Batman versus Superman, I felt like this movie could be unwatchable. And some of the early rumors from the Joss Whedon, not Joss Whedon, from the Zack Snyder Justice League, the script and some of the early cuts of the Zack Snyder Justice League said the movie was borderline unwatchable. And if they kept some of that Snyder stuff, I could see why.
Yeah.
Because Joss Whedon reshot a lot of this movie and it was passable. Um, the Steppenwolf thing was bad. Steppenwolf was not a good villain. He was boring. He was predictable. He was cliche. I want my mother boxes so I can be the strongest person. I'm shitty Thanos. Oh. They made him shitty Thanos. It was like, you can't stop me. I'm Steppenwolf. I'm named after a band. Ah, ha, ha, ha. You can't stop me. Turn into a parademon. Lols. And by the way, that mockery has more personality than Steppenwolf had in the entire movie.
Yeah.
It's like, yes, okay, that's a very big understatement. He had no personality. And let me say that Steppenwolf barely had less personality than Cyborg did. So, just pointing that out. But Cyborg said "booyah" at the end, which automatically puts him over Steppenwolf. Steppenwolf didn't have any personality. So, I mean, Justice League was fine. It was fine. It was not the worst movie I've ever seen, not the best movie I've ever seen. It had decent kind of popcorn flick. It kind of settled all the debts with the whole Zack Snyder thing. And if Zack Snyder never makes a DC movie again, it'll be far too soon. Yeah, I mean that's it. Justice League was fine. It was a solid like 5.56 out of 10. And it
Yeah.
was leagues, pun intended, leagues better than Batman versus Superman. It
Yeah. Well,
was
that's not hard.
it was so much better than Batman versus Superman. It wasn't even funny. Let's say um, Justice League was a delicious pizza from your favorite Pizza Hut restaurant. From your favorite pizza restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
And you can compare that to that let me think of a nice comparison. That diarrhea you might have had a few days ago from that terrible thing you ate. That is the comparison. The Batman versus that diarrhea you had to the most delicious pizza you've ever had in Justice League. That is the comparison. I hope that makes sense, and if it doesn't make sense, I don't care.
I think it makes wonderful sense.
So yes, but in terms of everything, Justice League was absolutely average. It had the movie itself had personality, even if the villain had none.
Yeah.
Also, I'm just pointing this out: Minoru Suzuki for Justice League 2. Because he would have way more personality than all these other fuckers.
Like I said, we'll leave it at that, and then we'll do we'll leave Disaster Artist because again, I don't think a lot of people have seen it yet. For the next round we do, which will be like more of the December movies that came out that we've seen. So we'll talk more about that. Plus, it gives me a chance to catch up with some of these movies that I haven't seen yet. So we'll do another round of these film spotlights in a couple weeks or in a week or whatever, whenever we have the time, basically. I don't think we'll get to it next week, but a couple weeks we'll probably get back to it. Really quick, because, a couple fans did ask me my thoughts on the big news, the DC news today. And since we were just talking about Justice League, I'll briefly comment because we got other things to do. Warner Brothers appointed a new executive to oversee their DC Comics movies. We had talked a couple weeks ago about John Berg had stepped down after Justice League. Jeff Johns was being put into a more advisory role. Well, today Warner Brothers named a new president of production for DC Films, and he is Walter Hamada, who has recently oversaw production on It and The Conjuring for Warner Brothers. He is going to be he's already been overseeing production of Shazam for New Line, and he will work with Jeff Johns on future films. So Hamada, Jeff Johns has already commented on Twitter about it, saying he's thrilled to be working with him. Told him to get a Twitter account. Look, I don't know what to think of this. I don't know what it means. At least it acknowledges that they know this is a severe problem and they need to do something different. I don't even mind Jeff Johns staying on in an advisory position because I don't think he's terrible. But I don't want him being the one to make all the final decisions. Seems like Hamada will be doing that from now on. Look, It was great. The Conjuring movies have done well. Again, does that mean he can do right by comic book movies? I don't know. But at one point, nobody knew what to do. No one knew what to make of Kevin Feige either. So I'm not going to immediately discount this. I think they needed a change in readership. They got one. Now let's see what he does. Until we know what the plan's going to be, we know what the next couple movies are going to be, and those are going to be made, and those are going to be released, and that's going to be what they do. Until we know where they go beyond those movies and what the future direction is, you can't really say much about this move. The only thing you can say is it's good that they made a change because they had to make a change, especially from a PR standpoint, and we'll see where it ends up. Because you can't really say anything right now about it. He's primarily a horror film production, somebody that was primarily overseeing horror films, and now he's in charge of DC Films at Warner Brothers. So, again, it doesn't mean he can't do the job. It just means that until we know where they're going and we see the product, it's hard to tell with this. This isn't like bringing in somebody like Bruce Timm or something, okay? It's not the same thing. So we'll have to wait and see how it goes. There's not much else that can be said about it, which is why I didn't make it a point to have to bring it up until people started asking me about it. So, look, I think Mike would agree with me. It can't get any worse. Well, it can, but
it absolutely can.
It can, but you know what? A new voice is a positive.
Necessary.
Yeah. So, and as long as he stays away from Wonder Woman and lets Patty Jenkins and Gal Gadot do their thing, I think there won't be a problem with that one. Anyway. So that's simple when it comes to Wonder Woman. Everything else, well, we'll see. All right. Speaking of comic movies, because that we speak a lot about those, and that's what most people do. Comic movies rule the box office, and I was reading an article on Deadline today about how there's going to be a lot of talk about the next few weeks with the awards, Golden Globes and everything. There'll be a lot of talk about other movies, but right after the awards are over, what is all the focus going to go back to? The big blockbusters, the superhero movies, the big fantasy epics, those kind of movies will dominate once again. It's the same cycle every year. Indies will get the awards, but the big blockbusters will dominate and be the ones that people end up talking about today. We've talked about that since the day we started the show. And it's never going to change. And, you hope that the awards shows change, but it is what it is. Now, over the years, while we've, us and many others have spoken out about, big blockbusters not getting their due at award shows and, that kind of thing. Over the years, there have been some critics that have said, these blockbusters don't deserve it. It shouldn't be all about them. They're dumbed down entertainment. We've made the argument, well, not all comic book movies, not all blockbusters are dumbed down entertainment. Some are very, very good, and some are very intelligent and complex, and they don't deserve to be lumped in with movies that are more on the dumbed down, traditional, simple side of things. So over the years, you've had those comments from critics and even from some actors. Last week, one big name actress decided to throw her hat in the ring and make some comments that got her a lot of flack from a lot of people, but also got her some support from people. Foster was that actress who slammed superhero movies and compared them to fracking. Now, if you didn't read the comments, and you might not because it was a holiday week, I'll be brief here. Now, obviously, Jodie has yet to appear in a superhero movie. She Okay, now she did this interview for Radio Times via the Daily Mail. This is what she said, and I quote: "Going to the movies has become like a theme park." She added, "Studios making bad content in order to appeal to the masses and shareholders is like fracking. You get the best return right now, but you wreck the earth." Then in the final jab, she said, and I quote again, "It's ruining the viewing habits of the American population and ultimately the rest of the world." Pretty strong words. Now, look, um, there's a real other part here I wanted to bring up. I'm trying to pull it up. Because I just want to make sure I get the right things here. The actress turned director made it clear that she does not want to make $200 million movies about superheroes, and that CGI and that sort of spectacle is not the reason why she makes movies. I feel like, this is, again, another quote from her, "I feel like I make movies because there are things I have to say in order to figure out who I am or my place in the world, or for me to evolve as a person." That's the end of her quote. So, this got her, some people, the majority of people, I would say, criticized her for this and said, well, you know what? We don't want to see movies that are just you trying to figure yourself out. We don't, there's bigger things to worry about in the world. This isn't ruining the world, Uh, and then there are people that said, you know what, some of these comic book movies, some of these blockbuster movies are very complex. They're actually thought provoking, and not all of them are, dumbed down, simplistic entertainment. And then there were people that agreed with her and said there's just too many of them, and they're oversaturating the market, and they're preventing, because this was her point too. It's preventing a lot of original films from being made. It's preventing a lot of different films from being made. If this continues, we're not going to have too many unique films outside of, we're going to have all franchises and nothing original and unique. And look, I think some people understand that part of it. I think there is a little bit of a fear of oversaturation, and people think, well, if this keeps up, studios aren't going to want to take too many risks. They're not going to want to put themselves out there with more original stuff, more original products, because they're going to fear that and think, well, why should I go to that when these are the movies that are doing well? But again, there's always going to be other movies made. Okay, you're always going to have these original movies in the mix. Superhero genre is not going to go away. It's proven that. Big blockbusters are never going to go away because they're always going to draw audiences. They're high concept films. They're always going to draw audiences. Some of them are going to do better than others, But we've had this for years now. Different genres have come and gone within it, but for the most part, blockbusters continue to reign, and they're going to continue to reign. And even if somehow superhero movies did not do so well, if the genre went in a down decline, it'll come back eventually, but even if it went into a decline and went away, something else would step up and take its place. Other franchises would take the place of superhero movies. We've seen it. So, James Gunn, and I mentioned this on Tuesday, had a very, very good reaction, comment related to this. And I want to bring that up before I get the rest of my reaction and throw the mic here. He did this on Twitter. Of course, James Gunn, director of Guardians of the Galaxy and Guardians of the Galaxy 2, among other films. Here's the quotes from his Twitter, okay, when responding to these comments. And of course, I quote, "Going to the movies has become," that's hers. Okay, here's Gunn's reaction. I think I think Foster looks at film in an old-fashioned way where spectacle film can't be thought-provoking. It's often true, but not always. Most studio franchise films are somewhat soulless. But and then he goes on, spectacle films that are innovative, humane, and thoughtful is what excites me about this job. He also differed from Jodie Foster on the broader view of cinema. He says, and I quote again, that Jodie seems to see filmmaking as something that's primarily about her own personal growth. While he believes, this means James Gunn, spending many millions of dollars on a film has to be more than that. It's communication. So my experience is merely one spoke on that wheel. Let's see, is there anything else here? James Gunn said that most of your franchises are somewhat soulless, and that's a real danger to future movies. For cinema to survive, I believe spectacle films need to have a vision and heart they traditionally haven't. And some of us are doing our best to move in that direction. Creating spectacle films that are innovative, humane, and thoughtful is what excites me about the job. I said that one already. And then he said, and I already mentioned as well, but to be fair, at least from Foster's quotes, he seems to see filmmaking as something that's primarily about her own personal growth. For me, that may be part of why I do this, but spending many millions of dollars on a film has about more than that. I respect Jodie and Jodie Foster and her talent and what she's done for films. I appreciate a different way of looking at Hollywood's landscape. So, all right, so he was complimentary. He didn't bash her, which I think is very respectful because she's entitled to her opinion, whether you disagree with it or not. And what I like about this is, okay, yeah, when you're making a film, whether you're an actor, actress, director, writer, whatever, you do have a personal stake in it. It does reflect some kind of personal growth on your part from a creative standpoint, sometimes from a personal standpoint. If it's a passion project, something that, maybe it personally affected you. You learn something about yourself through the filmmaking. Yes, personal growth is involved in it. Personal aspects are involved in it. But that's not the only reason why you should be making that movie. You should be trying to do it for the film goer themselves. You should be trying to do something for them, entertaining them, educating them, giving them an experience. That's what it should be about. It's not just about, well, I want to learn something about me. That's a selfish way of looking at it. All right. If you want to do that, you can do that at home and show it to yourself. All right. That's not the way it works. Now, he said that much more politely than I just did, but it's the truth. And like you said, the majority of spectacle films aren't very complex. They are very simple because we sat here for years, and Mike will tell you this. We sat here for years and bashed Transformers movies because we said that there's nothing there. There's no plot. There's no story. There's robots fighting each other. But you want to know something? As much as we bash it, okay? As much as we bash it, you do have to have those kind of movies. Some people don't want to think when they go to the movie. Some people just want to go to a movie and just sit there and watch robots fight each other to escape from the real world. Okay? But that doesn't mean that every spectacle movie has to be like that. No, they shouldn't be. That's what the whole thing. You want different movies. You want different movies. You don't want them to be all the same. Some movies can be simple, like a Transformers movie, where it's just a simple seeing robots go at each other for 2 hours. Then you can have a movie that's a little bit more thought-provoking, that elicits ideas, but also is a spectacle. Look at The Dark Knight. Look at the Marvel movies and some of the themes they bring up, like Winter Soldier did. You can have thought-provoking narratives. You can have things that are more complex in a comic book movie, in an action movie. You can have these things, but they don't all have to have that. And a lot of directors like James Gunn are moving in that direction. They are fighting for more of that, and they've succeeded in that. Not all of them have, but some of them have. But you know what? For every little indie picture, for every movie that talks about simple very effective personal concepts like family, or severe traumas like psychological, mental illness, things like that. You have to have other things too. There's so much going on in the world. People want to escape. They want escape. Now, I understand the whole point is there too many of these movies? Maybe there is. But I'd rather have too many than not enough. And like I said before, there's always going to be individual original movies outside of franchises that will make it. If they're good enough, there will always be an audience for that. It's not. It's the truth. There'll always be a few movies that find their way. There always will be. We've seen it over the last couple of years. There have been other hits besides superhero movies or franchise movies that have done well. Look at Get Out last year in February. That wasn't a superhero movie. That wasn't a big blockbuster. It was a small budget horror film. And it stole the show last February. That's what I'm saying. Baby Driver back this summer. Didn't do huge numbers, but stole the show in July. If your movie's good enough, it will find an audience. And it will still find a way to stand out and do what it intends to do. That's the bottom line. And that's what needs to be remembered in all this. James Gunn was a heck of a lot more diplomatic than a lot of people would have been about those comments. And look, Jodie's entitled to her opinion. And I don't even think she did it disrespectfully in a way. I don't think she did. She said her opinion, and that's what it was. And you can disagree or agree with her with it. But it is somewhat of an elitist opinion. And the part of it that really kind of annoys me is, well, I only do it because of personal growth. It can't be about that. If it is about that, that's when you start to launch into pretentiousness, which is something that is a big no-no, I think, in Hollywood. Any movie that comes off pretentious is just a turnoff to the mainstream. And that's why a lot of these movies, I think, don't do well at the box office, because they are pretentious. You can spread a message. You can, look to educate and promote a message without being pretentious. It's possible to do that. I've seen enough movies do it. If you're pretentious, if you're so stuck up in your own personal way of doing things and exploring it the way you want to explore it, that you don't see it from any other point of view, and don't attempt to make it accessible to your audience, then you reap what you sow. Your film's not going to do well because people are going to be turned off. You might strike a chord with a few people, but not enough to make a dent. Not enough to see the movie make enough money where you know that people have seen it and it stands a chance at standing the test of time. Because to be honest, if you're trying to say something, if you're trying to elicit a response, if you're trying to resonate with a film-going audience, okay? If we can't remember your film a month after it's won its Oscar, or after it's won its Golden Globe, or a month after its release, then you haven't accomplished anything. And by me, I mean in general, because obviously not every single person can see every movie, okay? But if you have people out there that in general are not remembering the movie you made, then you have not done your job. Then you have not done what you accomplished. I'm not saying your movie has to make $50 million, okay? If it makes $20 million and it still gets remembered, okay, whatever. It's remembered. It can get cult status. We've seen how many movies have we seen get cult status? The Room didn't make anything. It became popular on its own. That's what I'm saying. You don't have to make a ton of money. It's about striking a chord with an audience. People need to remember you. Remember your film. If they don't, then you haven't done anything. And a lot of these movies get forgotten as soon as they walk out of the Dolby Theater in March. As soon as the Oscars are over, they're forgotten. Not every one of them. Majority of them are. And the reason why is because a lot of them are just way too limited. They're way too pretentious, and they don't look at it from a standpoint of trying to make what they're doing accessible to the majority of the audience. That doesn't mean you dumb it down. That doesn't mean you make it too simple. It means you just have to think about the audience. Do you want your film to be a niche film, or do you want it to try to appeal to as many people as possible? That's what you got to think about. If it doesn't bother you, that it doesn't resonate with a lot of people, then fine. Then you know what? Then you can't get on your soapbox when it only makes $1 million and nobody remembers it and say, well, geez, I wish that, films like this did better. No, if you make it the right way, it will do better. That's the bottom line. So kudos to James Gunn. I think he handled that very diplomatically. And look, I like Jodie. I've always loved her work. I appreciate what she had to say. I completely disagree. The personal growth part was the one that annoyed me the most, as I said. But, there is a little bit of an elitist opinion with certain people over the years. It's always been there. This is just another example of it. But, Mike, your thoughts?
Okay. I wholeheartedly disagree with you in saying that she wasn't condescending. She probably didn't even mean to be condescending. I disagree with you because she called it something that was ruining movies. Somebody who's trying to be diplomatic wouldn't say that. And that you compared it to the highly controversial, environmentally destroying practice of fracking.
No, yeah. That's true, yeah.
So a lot of Hollywood elite liberals would probably see that as an incredible insult. Because, yes, fracking does endanger our environment. It is only meant for, In fact, fracking is not good for anything, but whatever. That's a debate to be had another time. So, yes, I disagree with you. I'm pretty certain she meant to be that level of intense, that level of condescending, and that level of pretentious. And yes, Jodie Foster is a legend in the industry. Wholeheartedly, she's a legend in the industry. And yes, she is welcome to her opinion. However, she is also welcome to criticism of her opinion. And yes, James Gunn was extraordinarily diplomatic. And to be fair, yes, James Gunn is 100% right. Her belief that the system is pretty common, but isn't totally without basis. Spectacle can't be thought-provoking, and yes, there are a lot of spectacles out there that are, in fact, just that, spectacles. They're not thought-provoking. You mentioned it. Yes, you mentioned it already. Transformers, that's probably the best example, or something like, I guess, Green Lantern. Or even Deadpool to an extent, but Deadpool had its moments of just thought provoking, but it was entertaining. Not every movie is going to be thought provoking. Not every movie is going to be, and on the other hand, not every movie can be this dramatic or psychologically intense piece. And therein lies the problem. You need both of these to have a healthy box office. You do. Because people don't just want to see the thought-provoking, intense kind of movies, but on the other hand, people kind of want to get away and escape. Now, blockbusters, especially a lot of the Marvel blockbusters these days, are not just spectacles. They are thought-provoking, emotion-invoking movies. There is a lot to think of when you watch Logan, when you watch Captain America: Civil War, when you watch Guardians of the Galaxy 1 and 2. There's a lot going on there. More than just the ha 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 and oh big fight scenes. There are emotional centers and major issues that they do address in these movies. So the fact that Jodie Foster, who is again a legend in the business, can just write it all off is not good. It is pretentious. It is condescending. It is an elitist point of view, and it does not help the business whatsoever. Um, and yes, a lot of these pretentious movies we forget about, especially around Oscar season. Especially around Oscar season. Um, and they don't resonate. They absolutely do not resonate. Um, but a lot of these movies that do have this, that are spectacles, that address a lot of things, are resonating with the audience, and that is important. There's a place in Hollywood for all of these things. So
Mm-hmm.
I just think that Jodie Foster's kind of comments were not okay. Especially, it's like, all right, well, what does she think about comedies?
Yeah.
Not all comedies are thought provoking and emotion provoking. Some just you just laugh. What does she think about like the animated films? Not every animated film is Wall-E. Not every animated film is Coco or Toy Story 3 or something like that. Sometimes you just want to see an animated film to feel good, like Secret Life of Pets.
Right.
So her words were elitist and I think on a level careless. But you see where she's coming from. Even if many of us think it's wrong. Because in the end, Hollywood's evolved past that point. And the world, the industry is big enough for all
Right.
of these movies. That's just the long and the short. And it's not killing Hollywood. You don't always, and if honestly, her issue shouldn't be with the audience, and I don't know if it is truly is with the audience, but it seems like that's who she's attacking. It should be with the people running the industry, these studio heads, these studio boards who think that every new property, every new movie should be a franchise. And if they don't hit the X amount of dollars, well, it's a failure. That's not how it should be. And that's unfortunately where some in Hollywood are. Now, if she's blaming Marvel, well, what is Marvel going to do except release comic book films? They're a comic book company. Same with DC. Disney doesn't just, and besides, Disney doesn't just release comic book movies or sci-fi epics. Disney releases these mid-budget drama films too. Bridge of Spies had a pretty big Hollywood, a pretty big Oscar
Mm-hmm.
buzz last year. Got an Oscar last year.
Right.
So Disney, because I'm mentioning Disney because they're the biggest thing right now. They don't just do one thing or two things or three things. They do many things. But other studios might look like, well, might look and say, well, we need a big budget movie, and we will pass on the small
Yeah.
budget indie thing. So yes, her issue shouldn't be with what we as the fans like and will pay and see. It should be with studio heads and studio boards and the people who approve these items, people who say, "Oh well, this is what we need," blah 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 blah. There's her real issue. Because when she presents her comments like she did, how else are we supposed to see it? As well, all right, now we're offended because you
Yeah.
think we're the problem. Well, it's not our fault. We didn't go see Money Monster. We weren't interested in Money Monster.
Yeah.
So,
When I said earlier that she was diplomatic, I guess I was saying she could have been a little more like. I guess I just suspect that she could have been a little more brutal in terms of like. To me, that was on the lesser scale of brutality in terms of the comments she could have made because I've heard over the years that other actors have said worse. They haven't gone on record. Like if you go in the forums and that, you hear that they've said worse. So maybe I just expected to be more. But yeah, comparing it to Frat, I mean that is bad. But to me, I just thought she could go further than she actually did. But you're right in that it to me it's more melodramatic. Like, oh wow, it's ruining the world. Oh wow, I mean that to me that's just melodramatic. You know what I mean? It's like, wow, I just want to get my point across that these things are awful, and I can't find the whole thing, but I remember reading in one article that she even indicated she might consider doing one, but it would have to be like something psychological and more on a thriller scale. You know what I mean? Like something that wouldn't be. It have to stand on its own and be something unique and different. And so, look, just to end this because it's not gonna be the first time somebody does this. It's not gonna be the last. The bottom line is this: all you need to do, okay, look, you can not like these movies, okay, that's a fair thing. Not everybody's gonna like everything, okay, but I think you pointed this out, and I think it's right too. In parts of this, if you want to go after the studios and be like, well, you shouldn't be just doing this, you should be looking to be better, then go ahead and do that. James Gunn kind of does, like, we're trying to make better movies. We're trying to make these movies thought provoking and not just simple entertainment. If you want to go after the studios that consistently put out, movies that don't create, discussion, that don't make you think, that are just, not garbage, but simple and not, they dumb it down because they don't think the audience can take it. You want to go after those studios, then go after those studios. Stay on that topic. Don't just acknowledge that, because she did acknowledge the studios, but then, as you said, she goes off after the audience, basically like, well, you're wrong to go out and see them. If she kept it just the studios, I think it comes off a little bit better. Like, well, I'm just trying to get these studios to raise their game and not just go for, put some more effort into it. You know what I mean? You want to do that, then go for it. But to make it about the audience, like, well, the audience should be wanting more here. And then to make it sound like any person, because this is the thing, folks, there's a lot of young, aspiring directors, writers, whatever, that will read that and go, well, maybe that's what I should be doing. I should be making films that allow me to personally grow. Yeah, you should be, but that's the only reason you're making films. Please don't make films. Please don't make films, because this is not. Yes, it's a creative process for you to explore and to express your creativity and to grow as a person and as a filmmaker. Yes, absolutely. I'm not saying that that's not a big part of it, if not the biggest part of it. But there has to be a component there where it's not just about that. If you don't admit that to yourself, you will never make a film that people want to see. Trust me. You have got to acknowledge that that there are parts of the audience that are not going to look at your personal view and think that that's the only way to see it. You have to make it accessible. Your film has to be accessible. I don't care what it's about. You have to make it accessible to more than just whatever is in your own mind. There has to be more in there than just what you think is going to help you grow as a person as you explore the creativity that you're expressing in that film. There has to be, or it's just not going to work. Trust me on that. I've written enough scripts and stories, and yeah, I've never directed anything professionally and everything. I've learned. I know what to do. I went to school for it. But you can't just make it about your own personal growth. It's a big part of it, but you have to make it accessible, and you have to try to make a film that is going to resonate and that people are going to want to see. Without and yes, do that without taking away from whatever you're trying to accomplish, whether it's trying to send a message or educate, entertain, whatever. Do it without taking away from that. That's the difficult part. You have to toe that line. But you have to toe that line. You have to do it. If otherwise, it's not going to work. So, all right, that's the bigger discussion we're going to have. There's another real discussion we're going to have. This one we won't talk about quite as long, mostly because Mike hasn't seen the movie, but he knows what happens in it. Obviously, over the last couple of weeks, there's been a great deal of discussion about Star Wars The Last Jedi, a blockbuster that no doubt is dominating the box office right now. From the box office, you would be like looking at this going, wow, people must really like this movie. Look at it, it's doing well. And from the critical score, critics seem to love it. But then you look at the audience scores on sites like Rotten Tomatoes, and it's not good. And if you go into some message boards and some forums, there's just as many people that hate the movie as that like the movie. Now, as I mentioned on Tuesday, and as I mentioned over the last couple of weeks, there's been some controversy with this film. And there's been so-called bots, alt-right, whatever you want to call it. People are out there spamming sites like Rotten Tomatoes and lowering the audience score. And, you know, there's people that don't like the fact that the lead character is a woman. And that happened with Force Awakens. They didn't like her, that she was a woman. They don't like, they're calling her Mary Sue. And that, of course, being Rey. You know, there's people that don't like the aspect of the movie that focuses on Rey and the villain Kylo Ren, and how there's some people consider what happened in this movie to be romantic implications or a setup for that, which I don't, because I think they more than kind of, even if there was some intimation of that, it's gone by the end of the movie. Again, there's going to be spoilers here, so if you haven't seen the movie, please, and you don't want to be spoiled, then you might want to turn off the segment now. You know, there's a lot of different reasons out there why people are hating on this movie. There's obviously been people before Force Awakens or even after Force Awakens came out that are like, you know what, I don't want this. I want the expanded, I want the universe that was in the books, and I don't want what Disney's doing. Da, da, da. Look, I'm not going to get on my soapbox and say because I like the movie or I love the movie that people should all love the movie. I never would do that. Everybody's entitled to their opinion. You can disagree, whatever. I know there's going to be people that don't like this movie. There's some movies that I think are the best of all time that people hate. Even some of the movies that are considered the best of all time have their haters, okay? So you're always entitled to that. What I don't like is when people hate for the wrong reasons. What I don't like is when people try to spread an agenda just for the sake of spreading an agenda, and, you know, are just, again, if you don't like the movie, fine. Say you don't like the movie, explain why you don't like the movie, and you want to discuss it and get involved in respectful discourse about it, then go ahead and do that. Fine, that's great. But don't do what some of these people are doing and go into message boards and go into, you know, websites and polls and spamming and just trying to, because look, if you see the box office, it's not working, okay? People are still seeing the movie, and the majority of people I've come across at least like the movie. Again, if you don't like it, that's your prerogative. Now, this is becoming a dilemma here, because obviously movies over the last couple of years, there's been some derisiveness with critics and filmgoers. And I can't get lost here, because even if there wasn't all this spamming of websites and everything, I still think there might have been a disconnect between certain members of the audience and critics. I still think there'd be that disconnect. You saw it a little bit with Justice League, where more people were favorable to it than critics. You saw it a little bit with, well, not with Batman vs Superman, but you've seen it with other movies over the last couple of years. Now, look. Sometimes I think people just like to disagree with the critics, and even if their opinion is not what, you know, and they go against the critics, even if that's not their opinion. Other times, I think people are just, you know, biased. We all are. We all have our own biases. My opinion is always this: when it comes to critic sites, okay, or when it comes to critics in general, whether it's me, Mike, you know, could we do this show? We criticize a lot of things. You know, a site like Rotten Tomatoes, or your favorite newspaper writer that writes a film review every week, whatever the case may be, okay? When it comes to critics of any kind, okay, in regards to film or TV or anything, I always think you got to make up your own mind. You want to read that review to get a sense of whether you should even give the film a try? Go for it. Your mind. Okay? If you're on the fence, like, I don't know, go see the film yourself. Have your own opinion. You're your own person. Have your own opinion. And then don't be afraid to state it, and then don't be afraid to discuss it. But don't try to make everybody agree with you, because it doesn't work. Okay? Don't try to make it out to be this big campaign. Don't make it out to be more than this. At the end of the day, this is a movie. You either enjoy it or you don't. That's what it is. Don't make it out to be more than that. That's really the long and the short of it. Okay? Because if you're going to websites and you're spamming and you're trying to force some kind of agenda or whatever, you got way too much time on your hands. Okay? You have way too much time on your hands. See the movie if you want to. Don't like it. Explain why you don't if you want to. And engage in discussion about it and leave it at that. In regards to the movie itself, the content, and did they make the right decision? In my mind, they made the right decisions. And I'll say this because I came into this movie expecting different, yes. And obviously, by now, you probably all know it subverts expectations. All right, it's one of those weird things where you went into it wanting certain questions answered, and they don't get answered the way that you expected them to. And for some people, that burns them, and I can understand that. But then there's for some like me, where you as you watch it, you're like, well, you know what, that's not what I expected. But boy, you know what? It's kind of the better way to go. You come out of this. For me, I came out of this movie thinking it's the movie I didn't think we needed, but we did. If you're a Star Wars fan, I think it's the movie they needed to do. And I think it's something, if they're ever going to continue this franchise after the next movie, beyond this current trilogy, they needed to do this. You can only have the Skywalker screw up so many times. You can only have the same tropes, the same things happen so many times. People complain that Force Awakens was too close to New Hope. Well, okay, now you're getting something different, and now you're still complaining. You can't have it both ways. The Star Wars franchise needed something new. They needed something to shake it up. This movie did that. It expanded on concepts already introduced. It evolved them. Star Wars needed to evolve, and it has. And now the possibilities are limitless. There's so much you can do. And I love the fact that as we go into this third movie in this trilogy, I don't know where they're going to go. Yes, the big end game is, there's one end game there, and that is Rey versus Kylo Ren. That's the only end game left on the board, and whatever they choose to do with Leia. Other than that, there's no other end games on the board. That at least in terms of specifics. And that I like that. I think that's fine. I don't like every little thing that's going to happen because it ruins it for me. I mean, obviously I read spoilers, but I don't want, I don't want to wait 2 years and all it's in my mind for 2 years is, well, they're going to do this and then they're going to do this. And I don't want to do that. And it helps to not have any ideas on how they're going to do that. So to me, it's the movie they needed to do. It makes it unpredictable. It makes it more fun. It makes it more thought-provoking, which is funny because we just talked about thought-provoking blockbuster fare. It makes it more, it opens up so many doors that wouldn't have been open if you just did what everybody expected you to do. Now, again, not everybody's going to agree with that. Everybody's got their own expectations. Everybody's got their own opinions, and I understand that. But I think that, in the interest of uniqueness and trying to just make the best movie possible, I think they did that. And, the true test is going to be how the third one does, because this one's not hurt at all by what they chose to do. You're seeing that in the box office numbers. So, to me, the test will be, we all thought the test would be how this one does over the next few weeks as it carries over. Well, it's past that test. I guess the true test could be what the third one does and whether this one hurts it. I don't think it will. But I mean, there might be some people that are like, well, I'm not going to go see it because I hate what the second one did. But I honestly don't think that will happen because I think people are going to be curious to see what the third one does. So I think when it comes to people being turned off, Star Wars is kind of foolproof against that. Regardless, it's a controversy that I didn't think would ever happen, and it's one that shows how little time some people have on their it shows how much time people have on their hands. Way too much, because the extent that people went to express their hatred and again, you can hate the movie. That's fine. That's fine. But to go to the extent of spamming websites and stuff to prove some kind of point or push some kind of agenda, to me is just completely ridiculous. And again, you have better things you can do with your time. So, and it created a controversy that was really pretty pointless. And the one thing, as I mentioned too, the whole divide between audience members and critics. Look, that's going to continue to get worse because I just think that people are, it's like an internal battle. Sometimes I think critics is dare to be different than the audience, and sometimes I think the audience members dare to be different than the critics. I don't think. I mean, I don't think it's any more than usual that divide, because there are always critically acclaimed movies that audience members liked it, and then audience members hate it, and then there was always movies that the audience liked that the critics hated. Same thing with TV shows. That's nothing new. It's just more pronounced now because of social media and spamming websites and stuff. It just looks worse now than it did. That's really that's the situation. Now, Mike, I know you didn't see the movie, but do you have any thoughts on this? I'll call it nonsense, I guess. It's a fair point, I guess, to say nonsense.
Do I have any thoughts on
people's
reaction to Star Wars and how they didn't like aspects of the movie and blah, blah, blah.
Blah, blah, blah. Yes.
Blah, blah. Yes.
Ouch.
Yes, people apparently have a lot of time on their hands. Especially those who complained about this movie. So, and they may have certain persuasions in things they like. Of course. It's fine. Nobody never said you can't like or dislike something. But at this point, it's like, come on. Who cares? It's a movie. In reality, you should be more upset with the fact that, out of Harrison Ford, Mark Hamill, and Carrie Fisher, the only one still alive in the franchise is, spoilers, the one who's not alive in real life. May Carrie Fisher rest in peace. That's the real issue we should be talking about here.
Yeah.
The fact that they literally booked themselves into the dumbest quarter possible. And, well, here we are. That's the real problem.
Yeah.
Not that any other things. I don't really have anything to say. I didn't see the movie. Don't want to see the movie, at least not now. I don't want to pay money to see the movie. And it's just ridiculous at this point in time. Honestly, it's just dumb.
Yeah. No, I agree. What was I going to say? And you're right. That is from this context of the franchise, they're in a little bit of a bind, and I don't know how they're gonna. And haven't seen the movie, the way that they left it, I don't know how they're gonna solve that. I really don't. And I'll give them credit. We'll talk more about it when we review it. I'll give them credit because to me, this was the best usage. This movie was the best usage of Leia in a movie ever. I love what they did with her in this movie. I thought they gave her so much to do. I could tell she influenced some of her lines, which is cool. But what they did with her in this movie was phenomenal. I love the way they portrayed her in this movie. So, as her last performance, it was cool, really nice and really fitting, eerie in spots. But, again, like you said, it's kind of an issue. I don't know what they're going to do. But we'll see. So, all right, we did everything. Obviously some of these topics could pop up at any point again. And if they do, we'll talk more about them. But I just wanted to shine some spotlight on them, no pun intended, because they've been so, such hot button issues over the last couple of weeks. So, all right. So with that being said, we are done for tonight. As always, the show might be yours. That means you have to stop interacting and contributing to the show. Continue to have your voice heard. Send us your feedback, questions about the show, scheduling the show, topic ideas, breaking news items related to sports, entertainment, wrestling that you want us to cover. Anything to do with the In the Spotlight Film Awards. Remember, questions you can submit to us by email, Facebook, and Twitter. But submissions, like ballots or anything, can only be submitted by email only. So make sure that you remember that. Reactions, comments, opinions on things we talked about the show. Any of these things you can do by email, Facebook, and Twitter. Again, email address for the show, itspotlight401@gmail.com. You can also follow us and tweet us at itspotlight401. Remember to use the hashtag #ITSpotlight401 for anything to tweet regarding the show. And of course, you can find us on Facebook. Just search In the Spotlight 411 on Facebook, and then make sure that you like our page once you're on it, once you find it. I realized once again that I forgot to mention the social media at the beginning of the show, or the email address and all that stuff. I did it 2 days in a row this week. So sorry about that. I have to get back on my game. I go off on tangents at the beginning of the show. That's what's going on. Last two shows I've gone off on tangents, and I got away from what I usually have to be better with that next week. Again, follow us on social media so you can get the latest updates on the show, especially when it comes to scheduling and any other important information. So follow us on Twitter at itspotlight411. And then make sure you use hashtag itspotlight411 for anything to tweet regarding the show. And of course, on Facebook, to search for In the Spotlight 411 on Facebook. Then make sure you follow us on Facebook, like our fan page, and that'll give you access to all the important information about the show that we post on Facebook and Twitter. Of course, all the other random things we post on those social media feeds as well. So follow us on Facebook and Twitter to make sure you have access to all the big stuff related to our show. If you'd like to keep up with the show and look back at classic episodes, you have two ways in which to do it. You can either stream us anytime on Google Plus and YouTube. Just search In the Spotlight 411 on both of those sites. And when you do, you'll be taken to our show pages on both sites, where you'll be able to access every episode we produced on Google Plus and YouTube. That's every episode from mid-October of 2015, all up to tonight's current episode. They're all available for you to stream anytime you want. So just check us out on Google Plus and YouTube. Just search In the Spotlight 411, and you'll be able to do that and more. If streaming's not your thing, maybe prefer to listen to us on the go, just listen to us in general, or you're interested in older episodes of the show. If any of that applies to you, check us out on our main host sites, Podbean and iTunes, to search for In the Spotlight 411 on both those sites. And when you do, of course, you'll be taken to our show pages on both sites, where you'll have access to every episode we've ever produced in the 7.5 years we've been doing the show. So that's everything, all of our original episodes from Blog Talk Radio from October 2010 and January 2011, all of our Talk Show episodes from January 2011, all the way up to mid-October of 2015, and all of our Google Plus and YouTube episodes from mid-October 2015 all the way up to tonight's current episode. All those episodes are available in audio format for your convenience, including the episodes from Google Plus and YouTube. They're transferred to audio format for your convenience. All the episodes are available for you to listen to anytime you want, in order from the most recent date to the oldest. So tonight's current episode will be right at the top of that list. All those episodes are available for you anytime you want. You can listen to them on the go, listen to them at home, listen to them anytime you want to do. Anytime you want to. Whether maybe you're a fan from 4 or 5 years ago, wants to check out an episode from way back when, or a fan who wants to check out a current episode, whatever the case, but you can do all that on our main host sites, Podbean and iTunes, to search In the Spotlight 411. So again, Google Plus, YouTube, Podbean, iTunes, and Google Plus, YouTube, Podbean, iTunes, your ways to keep with the show and look back at classic episodes. And search for In the Spotlight 411 on all those sites. Again, search for In the Spotlight 411 on all of those sites. Of course, as always, I want to thank Mike for being here tonight. Thank you, Mike.
It's literally time for bed.
Thank myself for another great show. Pat myself on the back. And thank all of you for your continued support and your contributions to the show. Thank you so much for watching. Those who will be watching or listening to this later, thank you to you as well. It looks like we got through the night pretty much unscathed from technical issues after I got started, so that's good. Not too many complaints. That is it for this week. Again, nomination ballots are due at 9 o'clock Eastern Time tonight, so that deadline has passed. A week from tonight, we will announce the nominations for the 8th annual In the Spotlight Film Awards, because that will be on next Thursday's show. That whole show will be dedicated to that. And, of course, we'll also let you know how you can participate in helping to decide the nominations for the live vote of the awards. Those are the awards that will be given live during the In the Spotlight Film Awards later this month. So we'll give you information on that as well next Thursday. So next Thursday, all about the nominations for the 8th Annual Film Awards. So we'll get into that next Thursday on Tuesday, which will be our next show. Sports, entertainment, and wrestling. Entertainment, box office beat, TV highlights, wrestling. We'll talk Raw, SmackDown, anything else that comes up. Sports, college basketball, national championship game, NFL playoffs, baseball, anything we have to talk about, we'll do that. So Tuesday will be a busy show. And again, next Thursday, the Film Award nominations. And then beyond that, I'll get into that more next week, but you all know what's going on with that. But otherwise, that's what's going on next week. Until then, please be safe, stay warm, and I hope you all have a great rest of your night, a great weekend, a great start to your week next week. We'll see you back here for our next show this coming Tuesday, January the 9th, 9 o'clock from Eastern Time, broadcasting and streaming live on Google Plus and YouTube. Until then, have a good night, everybody.